Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of We the People. Sorry, I'm on CP time tonight, and I got the panel and everybody else waiting, but hey, we're here, and let's get things on the road. Uh, got a little quick monologue tonight, and once again, these thoughts are mine, not necessarily panels. And uh, as you know, I don't mind speaking my piece. So the last time we asked a question about slavery, we asked who controls memory. Tonight, we're going to ask who weaponizes uh, denial. Since some of our own community, and I'm referring to Byron Scott, Candace, Candace Owens, Larry Elder, and others that I might not name right now, but they deny slavery uh, as having lasting damage. Meanwhile, America lowers the flag for Charlie Kirk, but not for Breonna Taylor, not for Sonia Massey, and not for the children it seems like we bury every week. Uh, but that silence isn't accidental. I think it's a strategy. And let's be clear, this is not just some, theory like, flat earth or something like that, but we're waist deep right now in the fight. To borrow combat language, we're pinned down, we're outnumbered, and we're about to be overrun. The question is, where's the artillery? Where's the air support? Who's willing to call in fire? I think someone mentioned a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. A lot of people talk about fighting until it's time to actually mount up. But anyway, let's get to our panel here. Uh, and I'm going to see who all is here. I'm way behind. I see, let's see, we have Derek is here tonight. How you doing, Derek?
Brother, how about you?
Oh, every day above ground is a great day.
Amen.
Uh, we have Javon in tonight. We had missed our young man the other week, so he's back with us tonight. Um,
hmm
and let's see, we have Masada. Masada, how you doing?
I'm here. Rough week, but I'm here.
And we have another gentleman. He's a frequent flyer, so he'll get here when we can. I kind of moved to Tuesday because I know he's just as much of a Monday Night Football fan as I am, and I guess I have to start out with congratulations for last night. Uh, but how you doing tonight, Demetrius?
Hey, I'm good. Good to see you guys again. Yes, go Lions. Let's get that out the way. That was a nice win. Uh, um, hey, good to see you guys again. Derek, good to meet you. I don't think we ever met before.
No, if
Good to be here.
not. Noah Javon, good to meet you, brothers.
Nice to meet you. Absolutely.
So, what do you guys think about uh, the current state of affairs? When you hear about denial in our own community or silence around Black deaths, what emotion hits you first, Derek?
I think that there can be a tendency for us to either forget who we are or just live in what my old boss, Dr. Joseph Eccles Lowry, the co-founder of the SCLC, said. Too many of us live in that 51st state of denial, and it doesn't matter what our experience is, how much money we are. At the end of the day, we're all Black, and we live a distinct reality in this country. And I don't run from it, but I certainly don't deny it.
Javon.
I mean, now in my current state, hearing about that stuff, like people like Candace Owens and other people, other Black people denying history, denying slavery, I mean, it pisses me off. But I think back to a time when I was like really young, maybe like 17, about to turn 18, and I'd only really had exposure to like white neighborhoods in a white school and stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm tired of like people complaining about like other Black people complaining and stuff because I hadn't been exposed to enough, and I also hadn't experienced society as a Black person yet. Like, so I didn't know what it was like to be treated like a Black person. I didn't know what that entails. So I understand where the ignorance is coming from, but I don't agree with it. I think it's something that needs to be corrected and fixed over time, similar to how it was for me. But yeah, my initial response is just upsetting, and I think there's a lot of ignorance that needs to be filled in to help with that.
Masada, how does that, we talked about how you educate your children. How does that, Javon's experience and what's going on, how do you relate to that?
I relate to it a lot. The young man, I feel good and bad with his situation that he's learning, and I do understand when you're not in that community around any other Blacks, or you're around where they're not treating you like you're Black, and then you go outside and get the scene like that. So for the ones who are willing to learn and can learn, good. For the ones who know, this says it all, my brother. I'm kind of quiet today. I feel like this the ones that don't want to learn, because people who don't want to learn, no matter how you say it, no matter how articulate you are, how nice you give it to them, they don't want to learn because they don't want to admit their faults or hold accountability. And the accountability is not even all on them. They just don't want to admit that they have a privilege, and because they don't want to lose that. It's kind of like what we're trying to do. You're trying to tell rich people that, hey, share your wealth. And they're like, no, I don't want to share my wealth. It's the same with telling people about race, or telling a white person and showing them what really happened. And then they're telling you they don't know what white privilege is. They're lying because they know, and they don't want it to go backwards. They don't want it. They think it's going to go backwards. So to those people, I just say this.
Did you get cut off, or were you done?
Oh no, I'm done. This is all I have to say to the people who don't want to learn and open their minds up. I have no time for it.
Brother Lasal, good to see you.
And how y'all doing? Good seeing you.
We were talking about denial. What's your thoughts on that? We were talking about people like Larry Elder and Candace Owens, and they say this, slavery wasn't that bad. I mean,
Yeah, I feel like there's almost always factors underneath that motivate people when they hold those positions. Some of them are like, classic examples of like Uncle Ruckus from Boondocks. But in other cases, you have folks who honestly believe what they're saying. Like, hey, what makes you think systemic racism is real? I mean, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this. And they really believe because they can do certain things, and because uh, it's not always explicit, that it doesn't exist. It's like but then again, you have to wonder, like somebody like Candace Owen, very, 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 very smart woman. Um, but at the same time, you wonder where her funding comes from, and then you see like the background of some of the things that she stands for, and it's like, well, you have these associations. No wonder, you're, kind of split. But you've seen her views change in the last few years about certain things. So, you know what I mean? I think it's a lack of internal perspective, and just, I mean, the fact of the matter is, when it comes to, for example, systemic racism, denial of certain things that happen to us. Of course, it's not going to be outright and obvious all the time. That's kind of the point of how vicious racism and certain acts have been towards us. No, you actually got to honestly investigate it, and then when you follow it, you'll see what happened. But in this case, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like somebody did a magic trick, and it's like, you can't see the sleight of hand, and it's like, okay, so where is it? Well, shit, it's hidden for now. But if you actually follow it, you'll see you'll see the results. So I feel like, yeah, maybe it's a lack of, for people who really believe that, which not all of them believe it. Some of them I believe it's being disingenuous. But for those who don't, who genuinely believe that crap that they say, I think all it takes is a little bit more enlightenment on their part. We'll say.
Okay. A little more enlightenment. All right. Demetrius, your thoughts on denial?
Yeah, so I think
It's
yeah, first they knew what I was about to say, so they cut me off for a minute. No, it was just my internet. So I think your question was, what emotions do I feel, right? The truth is, it's insulted. I'm insulted. I caught a little bit of what the brother Lasal was saying at the end. I think my grandmother used to call that the okey doke, right? Right? I'm not falling for that. I know you're practicing historical revisionism, and I'm not here for it. And I don't know what it is. Maybe you think this minimizes the harm. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. All those theories have been debunked by data and facts and reality. If you want to try your myth around slavery really wasn't that bad. Okay, I got 3 books we can talk about, or I can talk to you about firsthand accounts. It was actually that bad, probably worse than that. You can try and convince me that it wasn't the central economic function that built this entire country, because it was. It was on the backs of enslaved laborers that this country was built, right? So whatever way you're going to try and go about this, forced labor enslaved millions of people, and it drove the wealth of America. And the northern economies are actually included in that. So the idea that you're telling me it didn't happen, you're telling me it wasn't bad, you're telling me it wasn't responsible, you're going to tell me the Civil War was about states' rights? I'm going to tell you it was about states' rights to own slaves. Is what it was about, right? So all the theories they've tried to throw at me, either simple, straight up common sense, a lot of research, or many books, has debunked everything. I don't know how a reasonable human being in a public platform in front of a microphone could deny it. It's almost fascinating in its ludicrousness. Oh,
well, you mentioned North America. Actually, that period, slavery was part of the major part of the economics of the world, not just
absolutely.
North America. I mean, it
And,
was, they called it the slave trade. It wasn't
yeah, well,
just,
it's free labor. That's what it was, right? It's free labor, and that would help any economy. A lot of companies would like to have free labor right about now. Yeah, I mean,
but Demetrius, I'm going to start with you on this next. Let's start with the denial that comes from within our own house. Uh, what do the numbers reveal about the real cost of self denial? Uh, do voices like Owens, Elder, and Scott distort how people interpret the data on wealth, education, or incarceration?
yeah. So, but the thing is, you know me. You know what I do for a living, right? I work in stats and numbers, and just for the rest of the panel, that's literally what I do for a living. And we have this running joke of I talk about everything in terms of stats. You can't deny there have been studies that have quoted numbers like $6 to $14 trillion, not billion, would it be $1 trillion, right? These are economists who have said it, called it a massive theft of labor. These are the types of terms they use to describe whatever calculation method you use, and it's easy to trace. You can go to 40 Acres and a Mule. That's not just the name of Spike Lee's studio. That was a promise. That was a promise that was made to slaves, and we didn't get it. A lot of them did not get it. While 270 million acres of land were given to white people via the Homestead Act. This is data. This is stuff I'm not making this up, right? And so when you can argue data, you just but there's a dude in the White House who does it every day. So they're emboldened now. If you can just look at facts and data and say, nah, that didn't happen. That 2019 study that said the median white household net worth is $184,000, but it's 25 for black families. That didn't happen. Nobody really did that study. They didn't track that data. The GI Bill helped all the vets, all of them. No, it didn't. Right? We're going to act like the Federal Housing Administration didn't institute redlining. Like we don't know what that is. We don't know y'all funneled all the black people into one area and cutely called it the ghetto, right? So that we can't have property values and generational wealth. Sorry, guys, I get passionate about it. But it's insane. The concept of denial is insane to me. There's way too much data.
Welcome.
Right. There's so much data there that I couldn't miss this one. This is one where I canceled my trip this week. I'm not getting caught on a plane this Tuesday because this one I got it last week. American Airlines jammed me up. They did. I'm not getting caught on a plane this week. This one I got to be on. I want to hear what the fellas have to say, and I've looked at too much and studied too much, and these things are just facts. So I think your overall question was, what do the numbers say? The numbers say generational wealth over many generations just stretch the gap. And when you slip in institutional policies like redlining, like mortgage loans, like the GI Bill, like all these things, that gap just got bigger and bigger with each and every generation. It's I want to say undeniable, but we're talking about denial, so I actually feel like I can't say that word because somebody's actually denying it. So sorry, it's trillions of dollars. It's been going on for generations. It's been the inequity it really is undeniable. That's the right word.
Derek, what do you think these voices do they make your job harder, giving political cover to policies that actually erase slavery's impact?
Yes, certainly they do, James. And I'd add one point to Demetrius. Oh, man, you bring it, brother. And not only was we outlawed from the GIs coming back in World War II getting housing, but also college, that free college. So many of them didn't get that access. But yeah, I think that part of the problem is some of our black leaders, our conservative brothers, and in many ways, I'm a conservative brother, but I'm not buying, as you said, that okie doke, is that they have bought the bill. Yeah, we are always going to have brothers and sisters capable of rising above the institutional racism that exists in our country. That's honestly the bedrock of our country in some ways, but that doesn't mean it's not there. I mean, people like Byron Donald in Florida, Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott. Yeah, you made it. Tim Scott's folks, grandparents were, tenement farmers, and so yeah, but that doesn't take away the fact that it is still there and it impacts and restricts us, and it makes it for too many of our people 2 and 3 times more difficult. Not to mention the fact that how hard it is for, in many instances, for them to get decent education, to get a decent meal, solid meals, and living in, violence-ravaged communities. So yeah, I would hope that would more compel them to want to use Operation Bootstrap and reach down and help somebody else up instead of just criticizing them for not being where you are.
LaSalle, does denial from our own feel like betrayal, or is it just a survival technique to get, to make it within the system?
So there are some who we could say are traders who would actually say for sure that it's survival. Of course, it depends on the context, but overall, we will say people who passed for white in the past, um, basically, we'll say that they're surviving. You know, and some people who look at the history, you know, like, oh, we don't blame you for trying to survive. Yeah, no, we probably all have relatives who actually did that. You know, if we have history that goes back into slavery in the United States. But certainly it does, on the wider scale, feel like survival, like Brother Masada definitely points out often about the recording artists, you know, who should, um, you know, they say like, hey, like, I got to take care of my own. You know, I do what I can type of thing. But ultimately, we know that we know what they're really doing as far as trying to better community, the Black community. We know that there's a lot more that could be done instead of for buying like 30, like 40 cars, you know, and rapping about things that are destructive to the Black community. So it feels like betrayal. And in the context that's kind of hidden in your question is like, how did I feel when I was homeless and I saw some of that type of thing? You know, I in that situation, it's especially obvious. Um, it's visceral. It's like not only did the world abandon you, but like people that look like you in a sense, you know, um, to some degree, you know, to some degree. So yeah, it feels like betrayal, but I've always made sure to kind of reframe it and also keep some type of hope that, you know, I just haven't seen that other side yet. That that there's more people like me out there, and that there are people, and it's worth mentioning too that it's easy to say that certain people aren't doing things, you know, and even talking with you guys today, you know, it's very, very encouraging. Um, one can't paint this brush across and say, you know, certain things aren't happening. I feel like if there's more awareness brought to um, actions that we do together, I feel like it'll go a long way.
Excuse- Masada, as an activist, do you confront denial head on, or do you redirect that energy toward building a counter narrative?
Both. I'm a devil's advocate. I will ask, I will be nice, but at a certain time after that, it got to be a point where we were talking earlier. And Brother Dimitri, I thank you for bringing up more energy and all that, man. You're accepted because then we all feel like, okay, we're all passionate about it. I am very passionate about what I say and what I feel. So I do confront it head on, but at certain times you have to learn how to um, coordinate and strategize in a different way on certain things. Sometimes certain things ain't good to be ran head on. You can't take everything on head on sometimes. So the things I feel like needs to be taken on at times head on, I do. Other things not. And I got a couple of examples of all of that. But going back to the denial thing, there nobody can deny it. Just because you can still say it's undeniable, just because somebody deny it, don't mean it's not true. We have in this world today, people learn through textbooks, they learn through teachings, right? And then you try to teach them and they say they can't get it or grasp it or understand the concept, even if it's laid out, even if they have the statistical numbers. It's not that they can't get it, they don't want to. If you're talking to somebody that doesn't want to give you money, doesn't want to feed you, doesn't want to help you be on their level, you will never get through to them. No matter how you come at them, you will not get through to them because they already understand it. So thinking like that, we're talking about things. Blackish. I don't watch too much TV, but I did want to watch Blackish. When I first heard the name, I didn't want to like it and all. Seriously, it took me years to watch it. When I finally watched it, though, I appreciate some of the messages of it. I think everything on TV, on everything is controlled. I don't think it's just artist, Brother LaSalle. I think it's anybody with kind of clout, like Brother Derek said, why aren't you reaching down helping? And then they'll tell you they did. They'll tell you they went and gave bikes away in the neighborhoods that they came from. They'll tell you they gave thousands to charity. And I'm like, being not as old or not as young, we got all kind of generations in here, so I love it. Hi to everybody out here. But being in that sense, I be feeling like, how is this possible? Because when I used to read and see movies and think about the older generations, they all came together. And I always use the Jim Brown, the Cleveland, all things like that. We talked about Mississippi. I found out Kaepernick put his money forth to pay for outside autopsy of the kid in Mississippi.
Yep.
Why? Where's other people at? And I ain't, like I said, I can't pike it box, but where are other people at? And then I mentioned Black is because that show, I had to look it up, but it's season 4. They premiered an episode called Juneteenth, and the guy Dre was with his white bosses and them. And they were like, you're going to relate everything back to racism or slavery. You can't relate everything back to it. And then they named like several different things. And then they were related back to slavery. And then the boss was about to name something else. And then he was like, oh, shit, you're right. It is like putting the NIGGR can't buy a house on it. It is like having them go to war and then coming back and still being called that and not being able to use their GI Bills and all the other stuff that these brothers were talking about. It's all of that. And if you hear that and you can't understand that, then it's off. Head on to answer it and make it to go real quick. I have a son that's half Black and half Mexican. He's told me yesterday, we talked about a situation, and he's had to face this situation twice. He was at a school. It was mostly 45% Black and 55% or 53% Mexican and 1% sprinkle Asian and other races. They had a race war between Black and Mexican. He was about 10 years old. He didn't know what to do, and he didn't do anything because of how I talked to him and how his mom and them talked to him too. I want him to be proud of everything. Fast forward to now, he's 17 with me. He's about to get a job down the street from my house at a store because his mom, who's Mexican, who lives hour or so away, miles away, called the Mexican connection, and it helped him out. So head on, my son said, Dad, that's kind of cool, but ain't that fucked up? Why can't we do that? Because he identifies as Black like the world see him. And that's part of what we're talking about. It's because we don't want to see each other up. We don't want to, we say it, we talk and we fake it, but we don't really want to do it. It's too many of us around now with knowledge and power of ourselves to stop asking and stop begging for what we are. So I take it head on.
Javon, let's when you see your peers, repeating these same talking points online, does it confuse, anger, or motivate you? How do young people push back without getting silenced?
Well, so similar to what Masada was saying, some people will just never change. Like, you can't argue with them. Their mind is set. And I think the feeling obviously is insulted and upset, but then I start to think like, okay, if they're not one of those people that's willing to listen, if they're one of those stubborn people they're never going to change, then why don't we educate and lead with empathy first? And so my first thought, I guess, in my experience, is just enlighten and educate based off of what I know, and lead with a sort of kindness at first. Obviously, if it gets disrespectful or they're one of those stubborn people that'll never change, you're wasting your time. I don't generally waste time with people like that. But I mean, personally, I literally just had an interaction with a woman at my old job. She was like in her 40s. She had kids and everything, but she was convinced that white supremacy, Black woman, she was convinced that white supremacy didn't exist ever, and that people needed to stop talking about slavery and all this crazy stuff. And I just every day I would have conversations with her, and it wasn't like, she wasn't even stubborn about it. She just shared her beliefs, and I would kind of encourage her to look into other things. And I didn't change her mind completely, but by the end of my experience at that job, she had a completely different view on everything. And she was starting to talk a little bit more sense. And I was like, being a young person, talking to this older person, I was like, damn, she was way out in white land. And I kind of try to bring her back to reality a little. And I think those little conversations, kind of educating and leading with empathy, is the best way to go. Obviously, again, I don't take disrespect. So if you're gonna go that route or you're really gonna up the coonery, then I'm out. I'm not gonna waste my time there. But again, I think that your best bet, in my opinion, is usually just education and empathy.
Yeah.
See, I wish I had learned that when I was. It probably would have cost. It probably wouldn't have cost me a lot of. Well,
You
as they
came up in a
say,
different time though. You were getting it head on. It's just more math in our
Right.
days now.
Right.
Nowadays we can say
Exactly.
it's not happening because we have rich, because they can tell you we have a Candace Owens or we have a somebody else, and look how they came up. And you're like, okay, they did come up, but how did they come up? Because 9 times out of 10, if you look in the industry, any industry of money and realm, even politics, it's family ties in there somewhere.
well, when you come to Candace Owens is really a product of my generation. Some fathers spoiled her and made her, believe that she was, better than the other little girl next door. I mean, but hey, we've all, we've talked about, how, we've even had, light skin, dark skin, the good hair versus the nappy hair, uh, which is, the afro, the braids, the whole 9 yards. But I want to talk a little bit about selective mourning and public silence. And I'm going to start with you on this, Derek. When the nation elevates Kirk, but erases Brianna and Sonia, uh, is it the optics or is it a strategy to diffuse those to define that even those lives matter?
No, I think that, optics is always part of it. I think that these people have too often have lulled themselves into believing that they're right and believing that they're speaking the truth. I give you another example. You remember when the CDC was shot up here in Atlanta a month or so ago? Well, it was a black cop who was the elected like the leader of his class, exemplary guy with 3 small children. He was killed by the guy that shot up the CDC. Did the president have anything to say about him? Did we lower the flags for him?
I just posted that guy on my page. Yeah, I think it was yesterday.
Yeah. And this is the Protect the Blue, Stand for the Blue, group administration, and yet we didn't do that for him. Yet we could do it for, as you mentioned, Charlie Kirk. So there's at minimum a double standard, and probably at least a triple standard when you talk about how we fail to protect and honor our Black women, who, by the way, Demetrius, as you well know this, have lost 320,000 jobs, federal jobs, through this slashing and pulling out, Elon Musk pulling out his whatever that device was that
Doge.
yes.
Yeah. I wonder why they left the D out, because I thought it was Dodge. But anyway, so uh, let me. What do you think? Does when I talk about selective mourning, what do you think about here? I mean, does Black Death really mean anything? Does does it uh, echo anything? These days, does silence around Black Death echo? Living invisibly.
I can only speak from experience, and I do know that black males and black females will say being on the streets, having been homeless, chronically homeless, trying to do one's best, working very hard, sometimes having 2 jobs for being on the street. Um, it it does feel like it's a lot easier to ignore that suffering. And so I would say that while it's not, I would not really say it echoes Black Death, unless you mean, of course, to a lesser degree, of course, because that being Black folks dying in general, being murdered, is obviously a higher level. But this slow death of being visible, um economic issues, systemic issues eating away at us, seemingly, in the individual level, but obviously on a wider scale. Um, Having lived in South Central, I grew up feeling like, yeah, I must not have mattered, in the '90s, by the way, in South Central, and I was in the riots, by the way, in the riots and the Rodney King riots, and didn't know a whole lot about it, because I was very, very, very young. But I just remember being like looking around after moving from my old neighborhood to South Central and thinking like, yeah, I must really not be worth much. My unfortunately, my mother could only do whatever she could. She was a single parent. Um, but I remember thinking, I remember thinking like, based on what I see other groups have in their community, we were able to go to Torrance. Some of you might know about Torrance, California. Looked a lot like Temecula, actually, like Temecula. The brother lives there, and very beautiful neighborhoods. You know what I mean? Very well kept, and it definitely sent a message like, hey, these people. And I just as a child, I just took that like, hey, this must be me, and especially growing up, and then internalizing that internalized racism. Oh yeah, so double whammy. Like it's like feeling worthless from the lack of help, the lack of attention, um, the very obvious treatment that's different towards blacks being on the street, very much like a death, being invisible and not getting help, and then the internalized racism that kills you from the inside because you don't have the proper um, things built up to protect you from it. And thankfully, I was blessed enough to break free early on with proper education after a while and break free from that. But yeah, those are things that are poignant when it comes to that type of death.
Masada, how do you explain to your children that America weeps for some and just ignores others?
I do it head on. Once again, I don't sugarcoat shit for my kids. My kids and me have a relationship where I'll be doing something. They're like, "Daddy, you cussing?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, did I fucking cuss?" And they're like, "What?" And I tell them, "Cuss words are just words, but we have a thing that we made in public to where you have to know what crowd you're around and it fits in every situation." And then they're asking why. The realest thing you can do when you want to try to explain something to somebody before it makes sense, try to explain it to a kid. And if you can't make it make sense to a kid, it don't make sense. And they're gonna ask all kind of questions. My kids ask questions, I tell them the real thing. I can't tell them why the sky is blue and then not tell them go and research and tell them the scientific reason why not, because they're gonna keep asking. So I go in depth with them and I really do and sit. I want to prepare them for things I wasn't prepared for. I got prepared for a lot of other things coming from Mississippi, but I felt like a lot of things we shelter and hide from kids and all, and mines, I want them to be ready. Mines are, like I said, they are mixed. They have to be ready. One of my kids right now, the one actually with his hair out, with his hair out, he hasn't wore his hair out in 3 years. I should have put the picture from the back of it up because that's just the front. From the back of it, it's down past his legs. He's always had it in braids. His mom had to talk to me one day because he was crying and upset at school. They call them Nino braids. What the fuck is Nino braids? Google Nino braids. I'll just let y'all Google it. The younger audience and other people who know, it's a little white kid with black braids, but his hair ain't all there. And they asked him, do he have extensions and all that? Before this, he wore it out and they called him a girl because it was out so bad. So 3 years ago, when he was only 6, he just said he's going to keep it braided from now on. Now was braided. They call them Nino braids. So he took it out and got to show them all, motherfuckers, this is my hair. And I have to let him know, because he's black, they're gonna talk shit about him. His hair shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like this. His athleticism, he plays soccer better. He does a lot of things better than a lot of other kids, but he's not in an all black school. He's a minority where he's at for real. He's like a 1%. And it sucks, but head on, I tell him why America cry or mourn or fly the staff half mast or lower it all the way for a white person and not a black person, or for this person and not that person. We talk about the presidency. My kids know. LaSalle, you were in the riots in LA. I was in Mississippi watching that in school. I remember they canceled our school for it. My kids were in the riots in 2021, 2020, all of that. I took them out with me until I decided that some parts of it wasn't good for them and I didn't want them hurt. But they were a part of it. They're holding signs, they're doing all that. And we don't just do that to do it with them. I teach them what it means so they understand what they're doing. My kids, I don't want them saying, speaking, or doing anything that they don't understand what they're doing. And so with being black, with America, with the world, how it sees them when we go out, because they have to go out with their mom too. Their mom gets treated like she's the nanny or she's somebody else. She doesn't get treated like the mom. And y'all have no idea. I mean, y'all do, but it's bad from the mom's own kind. It's even worse from ours. And it'd be like, man, so I make my kids war ready. But also I kind of take the approach with you, Javon, like you said. I teach them. They're very empathetic, kind kids, and they have shirts that say "Be kind," different things about the world. Head Start helped them out with that, so I'll give a shout out to Head Start, furthering what we teach them at home. But yeah, head on. I don't sugarcoat shit for them. They need to know what kind of world they're in, because I'm not gonna always be around. I'm not around when they're at school. I'm not around at their teachers. They had a teacher I had to go confront, and I didn't even know what the problem was until me and mom walked in, and she stood up, shook mom's hand, and then looked at me, and then I just questioned her, and then I was raising my voice and threatening, and me and mom looked at each other like, where the hell this come from? You want to call the principal and all because I asked you a question? Oh shit, okay, we see you the problem. And then 4 months later, she was on retiree pay and leave and gone, because this current administration brought out what people really feel. So you can't sugarcoat shit from nobody nowadays, my brother. You got kids, let them be ready.
Javon, what message does it send to young people when TikTok floods it with tributes to Kirk, but nothing about Rihanna or Sonia? They get silence. How does that shape your generation toward American values? How do you see American values at your age?
So the best way to put it is like horror movies in the 80s compared to horror movies now. Like when like old horror movies, you would go and be like, whoa, that was like mind blowing. But then you go watch 80s movies now and it's like, whoa, it's kind of cheesy. That's not even scary. And that's kind of how my generation sees this. We're so desensitized, and like this whole Charlie Kirk thing, like, I mean, some people care, but we can kind of see through it. We know what it means when like they're putting people, like they're lowering the flag for Charlie Kirk, but then like they don't care about Breonna Taylor. Like we know what that means. We can see through it. It's kind of like an old concept. It's like watching a cheesy 80s movies and like not being shocked because it's old to us. You know what I'm saying? And so it might sound scary, like if you're not chronically on social media, but I can speak for my generation. Like we can see through the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I can't speak for everybody. There's still conservative people that are my age, but like it's we can see right through it. And the silence on Black lives, it speaks volumes. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like we don't even take it seriously because it's just like a joke to them. It's like a cheesy facade that the administration is doing and just conservative people in this country. So we're a smarter generation than we might lead on, and genuinely with this whole Charlie Kirk thing and just like being silent on Black lives, it's just not something, like we know what's going on. like we know. So I guess that's where I stand, and if I had to speak for my generation, that's what I would say, generally speaking.
Demetrius, do the numbers around public recognition and memorials reveal a racial hierarchy in who America mourns?
Oh, wow. I would say more than reveals, it promotes it. It perpetuates a systemic inequity in how we remember and honor the dead. Think about the disproportionate number of memorials for Black, Indigenous, other marginalized people, as opposed to white men. And you know me, I love studies. You put a study in front of me, I don't even care what it's about. I'm gonna read it, right? And when you asked me this, I looked. Yeah, there was a study in 2021 on monuments. It's called the National Monument Audit. They actually do that. And so they took the 50 most frequently honored U.S. monuments, and 88% of them were white men. That wasn't shocking to me at all. And half of those were slave owners. Still wasn't shocked. I'm like, let me read some more. Something down here has got to shock me, right? Let me keep reading. A third of the monuments that commemorate war. And so there's 6,000 monuments for the Civil War. But what the study didn't say was there are 34, 35 documented massacres of African American people during the Reconstruction era. There is not a single monument for any of those people. That is what I mean. It's not just revealing it, it's promoting it, it's perpetuating it. It is saying, hey, let's honor the white dude who killed all these Black people that we don't even want y'all to know about. Right. It is amazing. There's 1,500 public markers dedicated to the Confederacy. Not one is dedicated to the 24 Black soldiers that fought for the Union, or dozens. Right. This is the kind of stuff where it's not just like, does it reveal? It's just orchestrated. This is on purpose. This is not an accident. And if I can go on a little longer, where do they put our monuments, right? I'm from Flint, Michigan. I can tell y'all where the Martin Luther King Boulevard is in Flint, Michigan, right? I can
I
tell
can
y'all
tell you
exactly.
I can tell
Right.
you with Martin Luther King Boulevard in any city
In
that you go.
exactly. That is not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's on purpose, right? Black and Indigenous people make up 10% 10% of the individuals recognized with public monuments. 10%, right? These numbers are legit, and most of those, by the way, that's EJI. That's the Equal Justice Initiative. That's not the government, right? So it's more than just, does it reveal something? Man, what it revealed to me was, oh, they did this on purpose. This is not like accidental. This is orchestrated. Who we honor, who we celebrate, white men, slave owners, people who held down marginalized people. That's literally who we honor. That's who we talk about, right? So it just continues to promote. I mean, and so there's even like offensive things they know are offensive to us that they do. The Confederate flag and some of these things, that all that stuff's orchestrated. So more than just, I think your question was, does it reveal a racial hierarchy? I would scratch out the word reveal, and I would say it promotes, it perpetuates, it holds up a racial hierarchy more than even reveals it. It was even eye opening to me, and I thought, wow. And I just kept coming back to, wow, it was orchestrated. This whole thing has been orchestrated, and even I was surprised. But it absolutely reveals exactly who this country wants you to care about, think about, and like revere, and it ain't us.
Demetrius, it even institutionalizes it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like because now to get a street named is tougher. They have passed laws in some states where it's harder for you to change names because they can't have you out here having a Breonna Taylor Boulevard. They're not trying to drive down Breonna Taylor Boulevard. They got to think about that thing. They got to feel something, and they don't. That's not what they want. That's not what they want. So yeah, absolutely. You couldn't be more correct.
We've talked about erasure and denial, but let's be real. This is a battle. So waist deep, about to be overrun, and like I said, where's our support? LaSalle, from the trenches, Uh, when survival feels impossible, what does resistance look like?
He gave you a tough one,
I'll
bro.
say, oh yeah, no, this one I'm pretty passionate about. So it is a tough one, and I feel like it's something that needs to be spread more, or something that we need to um, uh, more than organize about. I can't think of the word, but to come together in a more powerful way. But I would say, in one word, I would say development. I would say education, a meaningful, powerful education. Um, I would say that first, development. Um, it looks like, and to be fair, it's kind of like what I said about resilience. To some degree, can't focus so much on resistance as offense. Offense, developing, like in the NFL and other places, their best defense is a good offense. For example, for so long we've been reactionary. And unfortunately, and oftentimes that's the major motivation with a lot of these movements. Black Lives Matter and other things are building up at the surface, and then one too many people gets killed, and we react and we respond, and great things have come about from it. But offense, um, offense, I would say it's development, developing each other. Um, that education that overturns um, the very, very convenient white supremacist depictions of us in our own communities. But with me, it's like using our major talents, developing our talents first, education, using them, coalescing them together. With me, I've looked at the whole thing we'll say with in Egypt, for example. I mentioned before how they make sure to show black people in Egyptian movies, but as, as slaves, and overturned our history in multiple ways. That's just the more obvious example um, when it comes to people of sub-Saharan ancestry. Will say, I did my own research. Part of my skill set is the research. I was kind of forced to do home studies, and I discovered something that was part of that education I mentioned earlier that helped me kind of revive myself a bit. This looks like revival, man. I looked throughout these dynasties of Egypt and saw all these faces, and it's like, whoa! Like almost every dynasty, you can find a face with big lips. They have their own paintings in their own tombs of how they look, but for some suspicious ass reason, I'm seeing on TV. And every time I get a chance to talk to white people about this or anybody who loves history, I bring that shit up. I'll tell you that right now. I bring it up because I've seen it. I've seen the pictures, and it exposes them. So that's a strength right there. That's a strength. You can expose that because guess what? Even though they brainwash us with what we just finished mentioning, they were stupid enough to actually keep some of the evidence behind because they oddly hate us, but revere our history at the same time. Let's reveal the stuff that they didn't talk so much about, and that will overturn the whole thing. So education that kind of blows up their lives.
Yep.
Uh, Masada, if culture is our air support, music, art, storytelling, how do we make sure that those things shift the battlefield and not just provide the soundtrack? I'm tired of seeing Jacob's Ladder and the Old Rugged Cross and Amazing Grace. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like Brother LaSalle gave me a good segue with that. Michael Jackson. He just mentioned Egypt. He said everybody know. I remember growing up as a kid watching Michael Jackson, and they had the all Egyptian cast, right? Eddie Murphy, all the big stars were as Egyptians, right? Where
It
where
was
are
it
they
was
at?
beautiful.
Where are they at now? Where are those type of people at now? What? I got numbers for you, brother Demetrius. You hopped on this and you said numbers, so I wanted to do things because I'll be going to make sure that I'm not too passionate. Because at times when I get too passionate, I'll be like, yo, I'm not sitting there trying to tell motherfuckers no more, f that, whatever. And then when I can calm down, I'm better at it. So I'm calming down. I'm trying to lead with empathy, Javon. I really am. I'm trying because I want to, but I've seen that. That's why I talked with brother Derek about Martin and Malcolm and everybody else. I seen what they did to that. I seen what they did to a Michael or Prince. If you don't believe in conspiracy theories, but those are the only types I ever seen when I do see Egyptians. You could put the truth in somebody's face. They know it. They know the history. We know Napoleon blew off. I don't even want to call it the Sphinx, but the Sphinx. We know Napoleon blew off the nose of that and all, and we know why. We know the books of Kemet. We the libraries that they destroyed. We know all of this, and yet we don't accept it. But brother Demetrius, numbers. I looked up, and from the census of the last census that we had, altogether, if you count anybody identifying as black, whatever they are, they identify as black. It's 49.6 million people, making up 14.2% of the U.S. Identifying as black. Those who are actually identified African, black, it's 40 million of us. The reason I said those numbers,
they got a box that says black. I mean, how do I get to check that box?
So what it says is the black or African American alone population was 41.1 million. The black or African American alone combination population is 46.9 million.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
When I talk, I don't. Sometimes I don't talk elegantly unless I need to and articulate. I feel I'm comfortable around my bros. I want the people of the world know who I am and hear how I talk on the regular, so they feel comfortable with me. I'm trying to talk to the not uneducated, but the less educated, to some people who ain't there with us, the street motherfuckers. I'm trying to speak their language so they hear me and understand these numbers too. 49.6 million as a whole. If you black, mixed, whatever. 40%, 40 million if you're just black and you don't count yourself as mixed or nothing. 49.6 million and 40 million. They've given 278,729,839 to do studies on reparations, but they gave more than that. They actually gave 13,825,000. That number is broken down by, I broke 49.6 million down by that 13 million, and they can give every black person who's mixed or whatever with $278,729,839. You don't think that's going to change the economy? You don't think that's gonna do something? It's not the 40 acres and a mule, because that's more. And if they just gave it to the people who were black, or just said they don't nothing else, that would be $345,625 that they would have to give to every black person. You don't think that would stop people from being on the street? You don't think that would stop people from killing and going hungry and all that? It would. It also would boost the economy, and it also would hurt a lot of people because not everybody's going to go out and invest it. A lot of people are going to go out. What we do now, what they talk about in the rap, what they talk about in the TV shows and the movies, how they want to portray us. They're going to go out and try to get the gold chains. They're going to go out and try to get the new shoes. They're going to go out and try to get the new athletes' footwear, whatever the athlete's saying to wear, whatever the rapper or whatever the movie star is showing. They're going to go do that, right? So how can we take our power? How can we do whatever, James? Because I always spin it back around. It don't seem like it do, but I do. How can we regain everything? Is everybody stop bullshitting and actually come together and let's make a plan of action and do something with it. They were doing it in the 60s and 70s, and then they got killed. And in the 80s, they brought crack, and we know the whole routine. We can tell 1,000 stories of that. But what stories we're not telling in that is that after they start assassinating some of the powerful ones, the ones that were right next to them either helped or moved out the way. Not all. Some are still around and still fighting, but they don't have enough power or resources. And the ones that do be like people I'm around. I had a brother ask me the other day if I have my degrees and I'm around so many. I have so many connections and so many influential people and so many affluent people and so many rich people around me and all this, and they swear they love me and all this, and they're like, why haven't you went anywhere? And I tell them I haven't went anywhere because the same reason, my brother. They're like you. You're sitting there asking me why I haven't went anywhere, and they saying let's go somewhere together.
There you go. Yeah. Derek, where's the artillery in political terms? Voting rights, reparations, curriculum reforms. Uh, there's still food deserts in Detroit from the '60s. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the church I go to in downtown Atlanta is right in the middle of a food desert. I think that there are enough of us, honestly. I personally am not optimistic about seeing reparations in my life. However, I say
Steve,
the people who are passionate about that and that they see that as their cause, there are enough people come together and work on that political piece. I certainly believe in that, having worked in the political environment for the last 5 presidents. I can see where change happens. I can see where a lot doesn't happen too. Like I was really disappointed today to hear that Hakeem Jeffries voted for that resolution for Charlie Kirk. That's disturbing to me. But I say that I want everybody to vote, whether that's your thing or not. Again, too much has been sacrificed for that. And you talk about school, the curriculum. I mean, hey, we all need our people to be educated. We want everybody to be educated. To be perfectly honest, it's like the young white kids who are being told they can't learn Black history. You tell them that, they want to learn it because they want to know, what are you hiding from me? So I'm part of a board on an after school program that I've been for years and years, and that honestly it's the only place that a lot of the kids in that particular community, that's where they get their best meal all day, is at that after school program. So there are all of us need to find something we're passionate about, that we're willing to give up our time, our energy, and our resources, whether it's our intellectual capital, writing a check, or bringing somebody to the party. So, yeah, I think all of there's, as my old boss used to say, it's not either or, it's both and. And there's all of these places, plus 10 more we can name, where we can make a difference, and all of us have a role to play, and I say a responsibility. And one thing I wanted to go back to, if I'll say it real quick. So like we talked about institutionalizing things, Demetrius. So yesterday in Oklahoma, the state legislature passed a law that every public college in Oklahoma has to have a Charlie Kirk memorial.
Oh,
And if you don't have a Charlie Kirk memorial, you suffer a monthly fine until you do one. So the Daughters of the Confederacy, they won the slavery narrative, and that's why you have all these. They put up all those monuments to all those Confederate generals.
Yeah.
And of course, 47 is now reversing what Biden did to take the names off the bases of those Confederate generals to put them back on. So it's eternal
And
vigilance is the price of liberty. Yes, sir, James. Go ahead.
And he's bringing the statues back to that.
Absolutely. All of that. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. We got to stay on the wall and keep pushing, keep fighting. We'll get steamrolled, brothers.
yeah.
So, Demetrius, if memory is ammunition, what numbers are the most explosive? The ones that America can't ignore. I mean, they've ignored slavery.
I mean, they can ignore them all, right? Right.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, so,
yeah, but yeah, there's some that you just can't. To me, there's three big ones that stand out. The wealth gap can't be ignored. I talked about it earlier a lot, right? The inequality in housing and education as a clear orchestrated remnant of slavery cannot be ignored. And then ultimately the cycle of mass incarceration, that's you can't ignore those. Those are Javon says, was it lead with empathy or start with empathy? How does it go? Leave. I
Lead with
don't
empathy.
lead with empathy. I'm leading with numbers. I'm beating you over the head with data because that's how I get down. I don't know any other way.
Fair.
And like for me at the start, I talked about that gap earlier in net wealth of white families and black families. There is this lost wealth, a legacy of lost wealth where after the Civil War, they made promises that we didn't get. And the GI Bill didn't help us. And redlining was a real thing. and to get what they call inheritance inequality. Their grandparents gave their parents something, which allowed their parents to give them something. I talked to you guys a few weeks ago about Mary and Matt. No, I love my parents. My parents are two ninth grade dropouts who worked at auto plants in Flint, Michigan. You know what they gave us? They gave us work ethic. They gave us safety, security. They didn't leave us no money, right? But that's not their fault, because my grandmother was as smart as any person I ever met. And if they would have let her go to college in Alabama, she would have been Summa or Magna, because she was that smart. And then my parents would have been in a different place, and it would have put the four of us in a different place. That wealth gap was orchestrated and done on purpose over generations. Then the inequality in housing and education in particular, and I'm glad you reminded me that I missed that on the GI Bill earlier. The segregation and the disparity in just the ability to attain education. And even now, there's studies that say counties that had a higher population of enslaved counties today show inequality in educational outcomes in those counties. That data is there. I'm not making this up, guys. I promise y'all. That data is there. Those, you can't deny those. And we haven't touched a lot on mass incarceration, but I mean, we all know it, right? 60% of incarcerated people are Black or Latinx of the 2.3 million. Come on now. We know how I know how statistical probability works. This is what I do for a living. That doesn't mesh right. And it builds into this thing called social death, where, like in my hometown, it was I'm gonna grow up and get a job at GM. That was just the plan, right? And then drugs became an option for some guys, not me and my brother, because I had an older brother who was not hearing that, right? I was protected. I was sheltered, right? Uncles and brothers and cousins who were not letting us get into it. But now there is this, we talk about guys going to jail like it's just an option. Like it's one of the options that's there. And that's a remnant of slavery and mass incarceration. Like it's just an ordinary part of who we are, but it's not. We are kings and educators. We are, and this society has built this thing now where, like, so those are my big three. I mean, the wealth gap is it's such a straight line, man. I can draw you a straight line flow chart, like I said, with redlining, GI, all these things. The inequality in education and housing has killed the ability to pass on generational wealth to our kids and our grandkids. And then the mass incarceration, it's orchestrated, whether it's a 3 strikes policy, there's so many of them, right? Those were designed to incarcerate a specific group of people, and they happen to look like all 6 of us. so those are the 3 things that I would say I'd beat them over the head with those numbers. You can't ignore those. There's more, but those you just can't ignore.
You know, let me ask this, if I could, real quick. Do we think that, like you said, your older brothers were there and they made sure you didn't go down that path? Mm-hmm. Are we missing that in our society today? That's what I thought.
We're 2 generations past that. Yeah.
Okay.
It was
just wanted to make sure it wasn't just me.
Right.
Oh,
right.
yeah, no, Mr. Derek, they call old heads and then YNs. I like to call them YGs, young gods and all. I have a 28-year-old nephew who's strength and conditioning coach for a college team. He left for D1 in Minnesota because it was too cold and went to Houston. He's a really good kid, but he told me, he's 28. He got other kids calling him an old head, and he called me an old head because I'm his uncle. And I'm like, damn, I wonder what they would call me.
I love it, by the way. I had a dude call me old school the other day. What's up, old school? I was like, yeah.
I love it if they would let us be like your older brother. When you called somebody older when I was growing up in the 90s, they were your big homies teaching you not to do stuff.
Right, exactly. For us, it was different. I got a brother 18 months younger. Kenny and I, we were protected. We grew up in Flint, Michigan. We didn't know it because my brother knew the drug dealer. And more importantly, the drug dealer knew my brother. And he wasn't coming near me and Kenny. And we had a couple of friends. So there's 5, 6 of us. We just grew up and we played like regular kids and never had to worry about some dude rolling up on us saying, hey, no. He had to get through a line of people to get to us. And I talk about my hometown with reverence. Other people don't. And they can talk about the water and all that. When I grew up in Flint, Michigan, I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. That's home. That'll always be home. And we got an exception on the call. Javon, I got to tell you, bro, I'm impressed. Young man, I'm impressed. Brother. Right? I'm impressed.
I try.
You are dealing with different stuff than we did.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a lot of different things than we did. and I'm impressed. I like where your head is and how you think about this.
James, how do we lose that?
Well, see, when you talk about my generation and how we lived and were brought up, it it was either death or incarceration. I mean, that was just, you either were expected to get shot up in the streets or, die in prison. That's, just that was the outcome. All, you either had a job where you were working in a factory, a steel mill, where, death was almost imminent there. So, to us, that was, kind of, an everyday thing. It wasn't like, death and taxes. It was death or jail.
Can I
And
add or go to Vietnam? Would that be also
well,
Yeah,
another?
that's not.
now see that now. Well, now uh, I'm kind of glad you mentioned that because I want to kind of tie that into what you guys were talking about with the riots. In September 1968, I was supposed to come home. That was the end of my first tour. But if you look back at what happened in 1968, the projects and all the neighborhood was on fire. I didn't have nowhere to come home to. So it was either stay there where I figured that I knew my enemy or come here and take a shot or take a chance. And then to even prove that, to prove the premise, the first day that I got home back to America, I'm called the N word, baby killer, and all that. I go to jail in the goddamn airport.
You didn't even get out the airport, bro.
No, bro, and I
Oh
wasn't
my
taking
god.
that. I had a whole
Wait, you gotta
I
explain
had
that
a
stuff.
whole
What do you
different
mean?
mindset back then. I had a whole different. I just spent
You wasn't taking it.
years, 2.5 years in combat.
Yeah.
I do not take that. That's not
He did
how.
not have the ability to control his emotions, and when he
No,
got
no,
back,
no.
there were people who said things to
I
him that they
still
should not
take
have
anger
said.
management. Okay.
Right, they
Okay.
should not have said to James King, and it
Okay.
happened
Okay.
immediately upon getting off the plane. Thus, he ends up at.
you
Hey,
know.
brother Derek, I think to answer your question, two
I'll be in
things.
jail too.
Yeah, kind of corny, but I think it's faith and I think it's family. On the last call, I talked about Mary and Matt. Every time Masada's talked, he talked about his kids. In every question, somehow he's talking about his kids. That's right, by the way. I'm complimenting you, bro. That's what it is. I talked about my brothers. It was a literal village. Like the lady down the street could give me a whooping. I didn't have to wait till I got home.
Mhm.
And then she called my mom, and I probably got a second one when I got home.
If
That's
you
how
didn't
you
get, if you didn't get one in between.
right. That is that. But that's all love because that lady
That's right.
also fed me.
That's right.
That lady took care of me when my parents had to work late. So it's that family, and then it's faith. We got to have something to believe in. I happen to have a lot of pastors in my family, so my faith is also very strong. But I love that Masada can't talk about a single question without mentioning his kids, and they all in the background on the screen in the
That's not
video like Diddy.
not even all of them. The one of them, the black and Mexican one, went to Mississippi and got whooped by the neighbor. Got whooped by my sister, and was like, they called his mom. His mom called me and was like, "What are they doing?" And I'm like, "That's what we do down there. We all know each other." To answer your question, James, it's to me entertainment. They gave us money, they gave us entertainment, and that's why we lost it. Because now you don't listen. If we got a little brother, we got this now. He's not going to be listening to the same thing Javon's listening to. He's going to go listen to whatever he wants to listen to because he has the internet. He has this. But back before, if y'all are talking sports, your little brother or your family might like that same team you like. Nowadays, with anything else, you got somebody born in say Dallas, Texas, and they'll be a Jets fan, and you'll be like, how did that happen when you're from Dallas? You know?
Yeah, not my house. Not my house.
Well,
There's only one team in my house. You go live somewhere else. You go live somewhere else.
My kids is all I got for me to teach them. So, yeah.
Javon, when you listen to the older generation, and we say fire, what role do students and young people play? Are you the reinforcements, or are you the next soldiers on the line?
I think I would say that we're the next soldiers, and I think that we're very privileged in a lot of ways to have things like social media to educate us, or not even like full on education, because there's things that you guys are talking about that goes way over my head. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of that I'm learning, obviously, but I think the fact that my head is able to be in this place, like Demetrius brought up, like that's a privilege. We weren't worried about getting shot or all this other racist shit that you had to deal with,
Yeah.
coming back from the airport and stuff. So um, we're very privileged in that sense. I'm very privileged in that sense, but I do think that our way of fighting and being on the front lines is a lot different. It's very social media driven. I admittedly I'm not proud of this, but the only time I've really proactively fought was during George Floyd. I was out there during the riots in LA and San Diego, but other than that, like I've always just been a social media war, if you want to call that. I used to make content and stuff, and I just think it's a different way of fighting, a different approach to how we educate ourselves, and it's also just generally, again, this is a privilege, but it's a bigger network of understanding. Um, and so I guess back to what you asked, generally speaking, we are warriors and we're trying to continue the fight, but in a completely different way because we live in a completely different time. And again, I fully acknowledge that there's a lot of privilege that comes with that. And I think when when you were my age or whatever, when you were on the front lines, I mean, you were literally fighting for your lives where you were. I don't feel like my life is in danger. I feel like my rights are in danger, and I feel like I have the privilege of sitting back and fighting in this way. Um, but yeah, I guess that's what I would say. Uh, generally speaking, yeah, we are fighting. It's just a different way, and in a lot of ways, just a different fight in general.
How does, in general, because I know you're just an individual, but one of the things that we always talk about in my generation and probably Derek's generation, even Demetrius, is the right to vote, the power to vote. Does your generation believe in the power of the ballot?
I I think that we don't believe enough. Our numbers don't show up like they should, and unfortunately, especially in this last election, young Gen Z men voted right. Um, I think that just there was a lot of things. That's a whole rabbit hole, but I think generally speaking, unfortunately, I have to say no. I don't think Gen Z votes enough. I don't. Um, and I think it's usually just a lack of faith in the system, or like a lack of faith that your vote matters. Um, but the truth of the matter, and I'm not a mathematician. Maybe Demetrius, you know something I don't. But if I had to take a guess, I would say Gen Z's numbers are low, and we're not doing well in that regard.
Correct.
And it really just has to come down. It just comes down to general morale, maybe. I've talked to friends of mine and who didn't vote, or they voted for like the weird independent choice because they didn't like either, which doesn't really help the greater collective. And I try to talk to these people, and the morale is just so low. They don't believe in the system. They're just like, it's almost like they've given up hope in voting in general, which is wrong. But I I have to take accountability for my generation in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to do better in that regard.
Yeah, you actually nailed it, and you nailed the reasons. There's a lack of belief in the system, which drives either not to vote at all, or to make a statement by voting for some weird independent candidate, which is worse than not voting. Quite frankly, you have wasted your
Literally.
vote, literally. But you made a
Mhm.
statement, and you feel better about yourself, and your chai latte tastes better. I guess I don't know. It's 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 something
No,
like
that's
that.
facts.
That was an old head insult. Sorry, my bad.
No, no,
But
no,
even
that's facts though.
you're exactly right. That's why it happened, and they're historically low. No group,
Mhm.
well, one group, yeah, one group was a little lower, but as they break up the groups, that was one of the lowest groups. Yeah.
So,
Unfortunate.
how do you feel about that? Especially from your situation, because even then you can still collect a check and go and vote because you had to have a ID, right?
Oh,
Give me 1 second here.
there you go. We
Got
got you.
some from over here. Can you get in? My cat decided to come over and invade my space
There we go.
real
There
quick.
we go.
Love you too, man. You can't keep just. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So definitely, I would say my generation was born '84. So what is that like millennial? That's near like that's just before, not too long before Gen Z. Even though Javon would probably call me old, but you being 41,
Devon can call
but
everybody
yeah,
on this call old, and he's good.
yeah.
We don't use the word old. We
Everybody,
call it unk.
there's
Oh,
nobody
right.
on this
Yeah.
panel that's
That's
not
all.
old to Javon. So
We
that's
all
what.
unks. He's got 5 uncles. That's all.
Yeah,
We
I
all
got a
unks.
bunch of unks.
Yeah, yeah. So with the voting, I voted for Obama the first time. Um, and then for me, life just kind of hit extra hard. Um, I think, at least in California, you have to register at a certain time. Otherwise, you kind of have to wait for the next year or the next time around, basically. But for me, it was survival was visceral, where basically I actually was over that Temecula over by Winco, Javon, that Winco over there. I was
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
not too far that little freeway over there, and when I was in that we've been in what was it, a hotel program, and but in the daytime when I had nothing else I could do after putting in job applications and other things, um, I would be sleeping in the little dirt area. They put apartments there now. Over I think it's
Oh,
called
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Luxury. You know what I'm talking about? Right over
Yeah,
there,
I
not
do.
too far from the Taco Bell. They have apartments there.
Yep,
Well,
yep.
there's a little dish there where there just happened to be a bed there, and I would lay there. And there was a lot of like despair. You know what I mean? So um, I there was a disillusionment about voting, and I had said something during a comedy thing with Earthquake. Asked me about Obama's speech on Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream," and I had some comments to say about it at the time because of everything I had been through. This was the second administration, and a lot of us felt like there was not enough change for Black people, in particular, that happened. Um, we can point to the universal health care and other things, indirectly affecting Black Americans and such. And there were other things too. But overall, like it's frequently said that, Asians get the Asian hate bill and, and other things like that. But Black Americans really did get it in particular aimed at them to relieve them from some of the things that they were facing. I don't know the numbers about that. I just know that when Barack Obama got elected the first time, I'm like, we are in the White House. That's how I felt. A lot of people probably remember where they were when they first seen that. What is it? The election. Celebrating the victory and everything. And kids running. Remember kids running through that field? What a gorgeous, beautiful sight. Um, I remember thinking, hey, stop talking about us like, we being affected a certain way. Like we in the White House, no. And then reality came in. And then of course you had the bailouts. You had other things happening. And this is no shade, like, oh, I'm speaking this to throw shade at Obama. No, it's just pointing to a disillusionment that a lot of people felt, including myself, who did vote, but who faced very real in your face situations that um, I wouldn't say like made me powerless. There is no excuse. Our ancestors did sacrifice to be able to vote. A lot of them died to be able to vote. We, like Brother Demetrius is pointing out, we need better candidates too, though. And I know some people would argue any candidate is better than Trump. But we can't. But that's I mean, that's where we are though. Like, okay, we're gonna vote for this person because hey, you don't want that person in office. That was some of the arguments. So yeah, the morale quite low, and I have something for that at the end, especially to speak to what Brother Javon said and about morale in particular. I actually already wanted to speak on that as like a closing thing.
Okay. Derek, I think a lot of people were, or that were disillusioned with Obama, really didn't understand how government works. Because even though we had a black face, he had no power. He didn't have that base that actually protected him. In fact, you had numerous white senators that would come up and say, even during his first term, that they would make sure that he would be, that his agenda wouldn't get through. There was a lot of things that were compromised in order for him to even get through the Obamacare. But as everyone has said, we were disillusioned because we thought that things were going to change, but we didn't change the structure. Did we miss that program somewhere, Derek?
I think you're right. I think that it made sense for us to be more hopeful and in some instances to expect more. I'd always argue, and I can, if we had more time, can go down a list of things that were accomplished. But I think that he was somebody that, well, you're right. Mitch McConnell said his goal was to make him a one-term president, right? Congressman Joe Wilson of South Carolina said it's a politically correct thing to be against the black man in the White House. There was this push, and again, they wouldn't really allow him to nominate the Supreme Court justice when it was his right to do so. I think he was really walking a fine line, and I think part of it was legacy in terms of thinking about if he tried to be forceful to an extent, part of his mindset, I'm sure, was, well, if I do this, how long is it going to be before we ever get another black person in this seat? Yeah. And is that a smart thing to do? Was it the right thing to do? I don't know. But I think the weight he carried was something that none of us could ever understand. Now, I do, especially though I'm hearing more and more of it. And I think there's credence to people saying that in his second term, that he could have taken the gloves off more and made more accomplishments, had more accomplishments. I think the problem by then was too, you almost, it's like Trump right now. He has the House and he has the Senate. So he has the bully pulpit. And so if you don't do it when you have the bully pulpit, you probably won't get to do it later.
I think that's the biggest thing we have to remember is to use a sports analogy, it's like he was there to play tennis and there was 2 people on the other side. No, there was 10 people on the other side. Because he had a group of galvanized enemies lined up to make anything he tried to do exponentially harder. And if the focus should have been, okay, we got the guy, but he's got to have the Senate also.
He's got to have some power.
He's got to have fewer enemies. Really, I don't know if it's as much the power as he had an unprecedented amount of enemies who were openly day one. They said we're not letting anything he sends up here get through. We're not, and it was difficult. Somebody said they don't know how difficult that job was, how much pressure he was under. I agree with that 100%.
And white Americans bought more weapons during Obama's administration than any time in U.S. history. I mean, there was this real perceived threat. Yep. You know what? This guy in R.
I do have a questions for y'all. I won't talk a lot on that, but
go ahead, Masada.
Well, the only thing I have to say on that, James, because I'm not upset at y'all. I'm just, when LaSalle said a lot of us was wanting him to be more, we wanted him to be what Trump is now. And you were saying the reason why Trump has his power now, but his first term and his second term, he came in with a lot of enemies. And him as president, are we gonna give passes nowadays? Because I want to see what's going to happen in the next 3 years from now. If we're going to really play by diplomacy, or what's happened January 6th, or all the other irrational things this Trump has done, and he's had senators and other people, and he's kicked these motherfuckers out. So how is he able to do that? And somebody else who with presidency, we were like, oh, he's just a puppet. He's just a face. how can one do it and one can't? That's education.
Because he's a white boy.
Oh,
So
yeah, you know the answer, right?
If you gave him
That's what I was
7
getting at.
of the first
Okay.
8 letters, Trump couldn't
Yeah.
spell diplomacy.
No, that's what I was getting at, though, brother. I'm
Yeah,
on
I
your
was-
side. I'm 100% on your
We
side. I'm
agree.
not against Obama.
I don't have
I'm
a bunch
saying-
of numbers to help you here.
No,
This is
I'm
easy, bro.
100% on your side. What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
we've been talking. How can we educate America? How can we do this? How can we do that? And I'm showing it. If we know it and I know it, and you can say that, then the rest of America knows it too, because they're allowing it to happen, including our government. So then we're still talking about voting and like it's going to matter. If Obama did that or not, it wasn't going to matter, because they're not going to let another black person in. So why are we still knocking, saying, can I have some food? Can I have some money? Can I have some peace? Can I have real diplomacy? Because you said a lot of white boys geared up during his term. I do think during COVID and all that, the military get up and send troops everywhere else out. And then when January 6th happened, this dude's able to pardon, threaten judges, and do a lot of other stuff. So why are they so scared of him is my question. What about him are they scared of? Because he's one man. And then my answer, y'all said it. The reason I was pressing is because America is white. And since we all know that, what are we talking about then? Everybody knows that.
Then would you, well, see, now you can, we got another half hour if I ask you that question, but
I'm
but-
done. I asked my
no,
question.
but we could talk about it. I'll make sure we bring it up next week. The thing, and I understand what you're saying, but once again, are you talking about armed insurrection? Because ain't nobody gonna give you that if you
You don't
don't
have the
take it.
numbers. You don't have
If
the
you
numbers.
don't take it, how are we supposed to get it?
We don't,
don't have the
hold on.
numbers.
We don't
Goes
have
back to the first
what numbers
episode.
don't we have? What numbers don't we have? We're not really the minorities. What numbers don't we have?
Well,
Okay.
well,
We got the
first
youngsters.
of all,
I do love Instagram and social
like,
media.
like we said last week, though, all that's good until
Until it's
and
time to
everybody's
show.
talking. Everybody's
Brother,
talking.
you can't get them to vote. You think you're gonna get them to pick up
Right.
guns and stand next to
Right.
you?
You can't get them to
That's
vote.
why
'Cause they know
I'm
what-
not trying to insult
they know
anybody.
voting don't count. I mean, I'm sorry to say that.
Okay.
It counts, but
Okay.
it don't count. We say
Okay.
okay, but we know Democrat and Republican are the same bird and same wing, and we've still
Yes.
been playing this game with them for a long time. And then they will throw a liberal party in there, and nobody matters. And it's all about lobbying, who gets the most money. So what I'm saying, James, is
why don't we have a black party then?
I'm asking. That's what I've been asking, talking. Why are we? Ask the football players, ask the basketball players, ask anybody who will hate me for saying that right now. Ask anybody who got any kind of clout getting 38 million for 5-10 years. And I just read off to you numbers how much money you can give each black person to put it together and do this and build your own stuff. They did it. They're doing it with the presidency. That's my point. With Trump, with the presidency, with anything we're talking America, we're being nice and saying we can't do that. We won't do that. We don't got this. We don't got that. And all the time they got in our face. And Trump said, "You want me to show you why Black America was mad? Here you go.
Okay.
Hey,
Now-
all my white boys that fuck with me, let's do this. We don't like you. We're gonna take away DEI. We're gonna throw this statue up here. We're gonna do this. And whoever opposes me, I'm gonna say F you." And everybody's like, "I'm so scared. I'm sorry." Even the Republicans who were against him are now, yes, sir. His vice president didn't like him. So
But they voted for him. They voted
for their best interest. So why are we allowing that to happen?
It wasn't their best interest. There's a bunch of black
Right,
and Hispanic men who voted for him. I contend it's probably because they have some kind of hatred for women. But I don't know why they voted for him.
Have you ever heard of the term Willie lynching? You ever heard of the term tap dancing, juking and jiving? He said,
sure.
Uncle Ruckus.
Those are the people that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Those are the people we have to get. We have to convince those people that will never work. Y'all fell for the okie doke. We forgive. Come back over here
You're a
and now
numbers
do
guy.
the right
Do
thing.
you really believe there's not more people who are righteous and old and young that are fighting for it? Because when he mentions the internet, I love social medias and all. I got to find out a lot of things through social media that I didn't know, and a lot of the world is waking up. We have the numbers. I don't want to hear we don't got the money, we don't got the numbers, we don't got nothing. It's today, good or bad, you are either righteous or unrighteous in support of what good things are. Because people are rising up for ICE, they're rising up for all kind of causes. The only people don't ever
Where
rise
the
up
hell
for-
were they in November?
Huh?
Where the hell were they in November? They were voting for Trump. That's the problem. The people you're counting on, the people you think have our back, voted for Trump. I know brothers that voted for Trump. I know Hispanic men that voted for Trump.
I don't think
That's
they
who
got our
you're
back. I'm
counting
talking
on.
to the ones that do got our back. You're
We
telling me
ain't
it's not
got the
enough for us?
numbers. That's my problem. Because those dudes are over there. I think you think they're riding with us, and they're not. We got
Yeah.
we
I
got to
mean,
fix their heads. We got to fix their heads.
we thought they were riding with us during the last election, and Trump got what 80 million votes, or 800. I forget what it is, but anyway, guys, we'll be on here all night.
This is good
This is,
conversation.
thank you.
You
This
know,
is what it's for. I love y'all though, and I
it's
agree
all
with y'all
love.
about
It's
every black
all
person.
love, man. I
Oh
get
yeah.
passionate, but it's all love. I swear.
Brother Derek, you want to give us your final thoughts, and I hope everybody will be back next week. I'll try to look. You guys can send me some topics. Don't always, I'm getting too much gray up here, man. Come on now, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, go ahead.
We may want to talk about it sometimes. What kind of coalition we need to build, because I tend to lean more. And you all give me hope. You all help encourage me when I'm losing it. But like Javon's point, and thank you for being here, brother. It's good to see somebody. How old are you?
So I'm 27. I'm 27.
Okay, all right. That's a beautiful thing. I think where we really need to go is find decent, like-minded white people, because that's who's rising up against this cat. We got to pull our people, our young men out the strip club wanting to make it rain and do, we got to find people, because that's who's showing up at these town hall meetings.
Yeah.
It's not angry black people, it's angry white people. Because remember, when they kicked Nixon out, it was the white people, it was the white Republicans said, hell no, we ain't having this. But you're right, none of them have backbone. But my thing is, this is really good. It's exhilarating and so good to see a couple new faces. And I'm a relatively new face, but I hadn't met Demetrius and Javon. But this is great. This is great dialogue, and more people need to hear it. And I thank you all. That's it.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, LaSalle. I know you said that you had something that you wanted to hold back to final thoughts.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it has to do with the idea of being demoralized. By the way, people who were demoralized, they acted on it, voting for Trump, including black men in large numbers. They acted on how not confident they were in what they used to support. And to be fair to white Americans who once supported Black Lives Matter, there was a lot of them that actually turned to. From what I've heard, it was the mention of, which is very persuasive, by the way, and I'm going to get to that right now. I have it written down, but this idea of over guilt tripping, what we were saying back then, it became pretty popular. Like, hey, you're an ally, you have privilege, by the essence of, you being in America, you have privilege, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there were actually some people who were taking it a little bit too far and they were being too aggressive with it. Uh, Almost like some of that needed to be more in therapy than actually in a movement. Like they needed to work that out. Don't yell at a complete stranger and say, "Hey, you got privilege." Some people reacted great with that, and they were like, "Yeah, you're right. No, no, hey, you're right. You're right. Okay, so what should I do?" Not all of them are going to be like that because not all of them are not that edified. They're not that mature. Some of them. So but that takes maturity to respond to criticism like that and history and education. Some of these folks were educated. These folks um, turned, thanks to people like Charlie Kirk and other folks, they turned. They turned and they felt like they were being, like there was an assault on whiteness and white education. But that's where I'm starting now. That's where I'm starting when it comes to morale. You guys know that in a fight and in a war, morale matters. It makes a difference. Only some of us will know about The Last Dragon, but I'm going to mention it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
At the end, Bruce Leroy, He was, he was practicing, studying. At the end, let's make no disrespect to showing up, man, but let's make him the sellout. Let's make him the bad guy, and even combine that with what we faced. Um, he's Bruce Lee was getting his butt whooped. Javon, if you haven't seen The Last Dragon, please watch it. It is an 80s movie, but I promise you it'll be funny, but it's worth it.
I'll give it a watch.
At the end, at the end, he gave his butt whooped, but he discovered his power at that last moment, at pretty much at the point of death. Um, I've been preaching for a while that Black culture is on life support. The things in particular in culture that keeps people together, and that part of culture. Not talking about entertainment, not talking about stuff, but the part that identity, values, life support. I won't say it's dead, but it's on life support. And people like you keep it alive. People who believe in it. But it's on life support. And I think there's too many black people that don't know that. It's on life support. It's not supporting us the way that typical people's culture supports them. And all of that ain't our fault. All of it isn't our fault. But still, right now, what do? We talk about defense. We talk about resilience. We talk about overcoming. Um, I would just simply say, don't reframe. This is what we were talking about, but this weapon needs to be brought up. This weapon that I haven't heard people counteract. Charlie Kirk, Trump, too many white people. I've heard white people tell me to my face. They're counteracting the progress that we made. And they're also looking at our situations and saying, look at where you came from. How could racism exist? So don't use what I overcame as an excuse to justify the existence of the thing that I overcame. That's what's happening with us, and it's happening too much. I don't see enough people answering it the way it should be, because maybe because it's so ridiculous. Like, oh, you're being racist towards whites, you're making them feel bad about themselves. So that's a defense. Don't allow somebody to take what we overcame as a people as evidence that racism doesn't exist, because that's what's happening. That's defense. Don't let them do that. Offense. You think of, and this is what I really wanted to point out as far as morale, guys. Please remember, and Javon, you were alive during this time. You were alive during this time. We watched as the whole world was galvanized. Black Lives Matter. George Floyd. But there was something underneath that I want y'all to look at that is very, very powerful as far as offense. You remember when Trump was saying, I'm introducing a new bill called 1776 this. I forgot the name of the thing, but he kept making an allusion to that. And then, of course, you heard about Project 2025,
Yep.
which, it did its thing. And they're working from it like a playbook. That can be discouraging. But please remember, that is a reaction to that book that came out, with the, what is it, 1619 Project? Sister, Hannah Nicole Jones, uh, writing that piece. And there's disagreements about the accuracy of some parts, but overall, the point of making sure that you retell history from a Black perspective, get the facts right, start it from a wider context, tell the truth about what America really is, and kind of blow up the lie in the faces. That book was so influential. They're still reacting to it today. Project 2025 sounds like a reaction to uh,
Yeah.
Project 1619.
Yeah.
The 1619 Project. Think about that power. She even said it herself. Like, if Trump thinks I'm trying to tear everything down, I must be a bad mother. She jokingly said that. Like, but I'm not that bad. She said. But the point is, with work that was done, they're reacting to it that was already had impact. It already had impact. What we're experiencing now is a reaction to things like 1619 Project and things like that, you know what I mean, spread across the country. And by the way, brother, I need to cop that book. I got that communication. I would definitely want to read what you wrote there. And I feel like that's the road, is to uh, realize our power, look at where we've been successful, and look at that vulnerability. I would call that a vulnerability, that we're being reactionary to the changes that we were able to inspire. Brother Javon, with the social media, for example, that's power. So that's what I got as far as morale.
Demetrius.
Yeah, so I think there is a way to do this. There's multiple ways to do it. I'm gonna lean into Jovan and go on the empathy path, right? There is a way, and for me, and first of all, I don't know how Masada is just going to eat in the middle of the podcast, not tell us what he's eating. We're gonna get back to that later. I'm hungry now, right? I gotta wrap up quick because I'm hungry. I think this is kind of myopic, and I'm granting it, but I'm leading with empathy. I think there's a three-pronged approach, right? We have to get to a place where we stop allowing people to speak from a place of fantasy and denial. If you want to have a conversation with me, we have to talk facts. We have to talk facts. I know it makes you uncomfortable. I know you feel vulnerable. I know it doesn't feel good, but that's the only way we make progress. I think we have to put a mechanism in place for accountability. I'm not trying to make you, my neighbor, pay for the sins of your great great grandfathers. I need you to look me in the eye and acknowledge you know they did that shit. Can we start there? Can we start right there? We can start talking now. And then after that, if I think our approach, we got to look at multiple perspectives. We got to link arms with indigenous people. We got to link arms with other marginalized people and say, it ain't just us. Now, Masada, what you're talking about, that's how we all get together. We get that group together. Now we can have a conversation. I'm leading with empathy, saying, let's try and find a way where here's this point where we can all talk. We're going to respect every view. And if you're strong enough to come in with your view and you're cool being uncomfortable, here's a point. We're going to take every view, but we're going to talk facts, none of that denial crap, and we're going to hold everybody accountable. Start there. This is great. The six of us here, we got every segment covered. We got everybody covered. These conversations, this on a much larger scale, where Masala can come at me, right? If he wants to, right? Which is all good. And I might come back with some data. I'm gonna come back with some data, right? Because that's what I do. And hopefully Javon grabs me by the back, go, hey, Unc, how about some empathy? And we throw that in, right? And we all start putting in our pieces, and LaSalle comes and go, hey, we gotta wrap this right? We gotta wrap this right. And then we put it in a nice book, and my man sells it. Whatever we gotta do, there's a way to do this, what we just did for the last 2 hours, on a much bigger scale. I think for me, it's kind of myopic, like I said. But if we can do what we just did for 2 hours with millions of people, we can move this needle. And once it starts moving, it just rolls then. I mean, assuming Masada feeds everybody and don't just keep all the food to itself. But we can do this. But this is it. This is the model. The last 2 hours of my life is the model, just on a much larger scale.
Hey, I definitely understand. Let's see. Who did we miss? Masada?
I think
I'll make mine short. It was
Yeah.
a veggie burger. I don't eat meat. I'm never coming at y'all, my brothers. I'm just really passionate. But no, because I want to know, once we do, I love empathy. When I'm saying my people or the people, I'm not saying all black people. I'm saying anybody that loves me, that loves their grandkids, that used to be racist and now got black grandkids, and know they go through that. I have a question for everybody. We need the coalition. We need all of that. It's not happening. Will it happen? When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen now? Or is it going to happen when we see if he's not joking about not running for presidency again and taking over and disrespecting America like they did for January 6th? Then are we still going to ask those same people, what are we going to do then? How are we going to get the coalition? Because my thoughts with that is, we know how diplomacy is supposed to work and how America works. I haven't heard anybody telling me that they're running for presidency in the next term. Nobody's talking about the next term. What they're doing is they're gearing up. They're putting their soldiers in place. They're putting their policies in place. They're putting their practices in place. They're putting their good old boys in place. And they're getting their weapons, their guns and all, and we're coming with the food that I'm gonna bring and all and trying to tell them, hey, let's sit down and have a kumbaya. And they're like, we winning. Why do I want to have a kumbaya with you all? So what will we do if that doesn't work? That because diplomacy hasn't worked for 500-600 years. America, it works when we be like the system is broken. And this is my final thoughts with it. All makes sense. We've been on long. I hate when people always tell me the system is broken, and I'm like, America works just like a well-oiled machine, just like it was designed. It's perfect. Everything you talked about, from the housing to you can throw in there with crack, you can throw in there with division, taking away the black dads, the brothers, the everything else. It comes from systematic oppression and slavery, and it all stems from that. And we're asking the same people. I'm not asking the ones that are cool with me. We're asking the same Mitch McConnells. I've been close to them where I can touch them. We're asking this same mug to find a way to hate me less than you hate them. And what they're gonna do is him against Hillary. We'll rather vote for a white woman than a black woman, but him against a black woman, we definitely ain't voting for that. So why am I gonna keep asking? What are we gonna do when January comes and we can't vote? If that happens, what are we gonna do?
Javon, you want to take us home here? You want to give us your final thoughts?
Of course.
See what the younger generation thinks. Maybe it's just.
Well, I mean, generally when I come to these, it's a lot of listening for me. Because like I said, I wasn't exposed to like these kinds of conversations, and I mean, I've done a lot of learning and growing, so I do give myself credit. But I guess my final thoughts would be just a big thank you. I like being in the space and hearing what you guys have to say. Like I said, I kind of have a fiery mind. Sometimes in my head, I'm like, I'm a little bit more extreme. Like I have the same thoughts, but it's just a little bit more extreme. But at the end of the day, like it's still good to hear where everyone's coming from, and it's just good to put myself in these spaces. This today in particular, I think was a lot of listening and learning, because I've had exposure to it, but I haven't had a lot of exposure to like the Uncle Ruckus type, or like the type of like black person that denies all these things, that tries to pretend like they're white. To be honest, I'm just gonna say it, tries to pretend like they're white. I've seen it a little bit, but not as much as you guys, right? And so it was good to hear what you guys had to say on those topics. I did a lot of listening, and again, I'm grateful to be here, and I look forward to learning more in the future as these little podcast gatherings grow.
Yeah, appreciate you having you. Definitely appreciate having you.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I didn't really mean to keep everybody on 2 hours, but Demetrius knows I am once I get started.
With time is a concept, bro. Time is a concept. I'll get up and go to work tomorrow. I'm gonna go make me a veggie burger. Y'all have a good night.
I'll see y'all
I'm eating
next
some
week.
meat. I'm going to make me a hamburger.
Hey, you guys have to start your own podcast, the Dimitri Asada podcast. This YouTube.
I love all this. I love all y'all, and this is great.
Hey,
James,
I would love to do it.
Demetrius.
I had a great hour-long conversation with LaSalle a couple of weeks ago. I told him, I love this. These conversations are fascinating to me. I love them. I can't get enough.
And one thing though, hey, stop saying I'm a 90s kid just like LaSalle. Me and him are just in our 40s now, y'all. We ain't that old.
Oh, all right, yeah, sorry. Y'all, we call y'all young bucks and YN over there. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm 56. I'm right in that sweet spot. I'm wearing black socks though. Me and James have a joke. I'm wearing black socks.
Long socks, huh?
Let me find out.
Long socks, yeah.
Long black socks. Tell them all the time. I'm putting on some long black socks.
All right, guys. I'll see you next Tuesday.